NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing you the latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. Okay, it's been a while since my last NetsBoy episode, like a couple weeks a while. I'm just going to use the same excuse I use every NetsBoy episode. I was busy with life, which is my excuse all the time. Because the truth is, I actually am a pretty busy guy. I have a lot of things going on, despite what the NetsBoy persona is, which is basically just a super fan who doesn't do anything but eat, sleep, and drink Nets, and that's all he cares about. But that really isn't the case. I have a significant life outside of NetsBoy. So sometimes I do put the Nets on the back burner, or at least NetsBoy on the back burner. But in this case, I don't see why it really matters, because this is my end of the season wrap-up show. And does it really matter if I did that a day after the last game of the season for the Nets or during the second round of the playoffs? Because either way, the Nets weren't going anywhere. I mean, they had the worst record in the league. So, okay, whatever. Here it is, my end of the season wrap-up. Just looking at the Nets season as a whole, I actually am not that upset about it. I mean, yes, they ended up going 20-62, worst record in the league, worse than they did last season, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to be honest, I think there's a lot of good takeaways from this season. And the biggest one is the Nets seem like they have a plan. It seems like they have a strategy. Sean Marks seems to know what he's doing. And Kenny Atkinson seems to really get a lot of solid play from his players. Like, look at the development of some of these guys. And remember, that was the key to this season, was development. It wasn't about making the playoffs or winning or things like that. The truth was, the whole point of this was to develop these players, develop these young players, as well as some of the veteran players into becoming more than just what they were. Great example of that is Brook Lopez, a veteran player, an 8 or 9 year veteran. All of a sudden, now he's shooting threes. That's great. That's exactly what Atkinson wanted. That's what Sean Marks wanted. So that way is good. I mean, and then look at the rest of the development. I mean, Isaiah Whitehead went from a second-round pick to becoming a starter in like 10, 15 games. Obviously, that had to do with Jeremy Lin's injury, which, personally, I'm actually kind of glad Lin got hurt. I know it's crazy, because the truth is, if Jeremy Lin didn't get hurt, the Nets, to me, would have been a borderline playoff team. Like my bold prediction of the Nets making the playoffs, to me, was not that bold if Lin had played. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was something like, of the 20 wins the Nets had, 14 came with Lin on playing, and 6 came with him not winning, not winning. 6 came with him not playing, or something like that. I know there were 2 games under 500 with Jeremy Lin playing, and obviously tons of games under 500 when he wasn't playing. So he's a significant player. I mean, when your point guard, your playmaker, your floor general, your second best player on your team is not out there, the team is going to struggle. And we saw that this year. When Lin didn't play, the team really, really struggled at times. There were times they looked good, but there were times they really struggled to play consistently and really all click. But when Lin is there, it kind of solidifies the team and solidifies the rotation and solidifies what is expected from each player, and we saw it. And the biggest thing that having Jeremy Lin did was it gave him a go-to guy down the stretch of games for the Nets, a true playmaker who you could give the ball to at the end of the game, and he'll make the right decision. That was the one thing the Nets were really lacking, which was why the Nets struggled down the stretch of games. As good as Brook Lopez is, he is not a playmaker. All right, I know he had that great buzzer beater against the Pistons, but he's not a playmaker. Most centers and most bigs are not playmakers. Usually it's more of the guards or the wing players who are playmakers. And the truth is, you look at this Nets team, yeah, they have a few guys who are sort of playmakers, like Sean Kilpatrick, Karis LeVert kind of proved it, Ronda Hollis-Jefferson sort of, even Whitehead. But no one was a true guy that you would say, I want the ball in his hands down the stretch, other than Jeremy Lin. And you could see that. So that's a huge thing moving forward. But like I said, I'm kind of glad Lin got hurt, because it allowed players like Whitehead and LeVert And even Spencer freaking Dinwiddie, who I would have never thought would have been as solid as he was, to have an opportunity to prove themselves and play and develop. And let's be honest, I think all those guys did really well. I think Whitehead was fantastic. I see Whitehead as a really solid rotational player in the league, a true sixth-man type player who can play the one or the two, a guy who can provide energy, can provide a spark. And I see him as a spot starter in case an injury does happen to somebody. He can be plugged into the lineup and start. I see Whitehead as that type of player, and I think that he really grew and kind of, sped up his development because of Lin's injury, and he got thrust into the fire. And then Karis LeVert, I think the sky's the limit with him. I see him as a true star player in the future. I think he's got all the tools to be just a complete player, a great defensive player, a great scorer, a great passer, a great playmaker, very athletic. He's got all the tools. With him, it's just a matter of health. So I see him as a possible star. Other players like, Quincy Acey, who played very well as well. I see him as a great energy guy, a great coming off the bench, stretching the floor as a stretch four, and being able to be just this tough, grinded out type of player. I see that with him, and I think that was a great opportunity he had for him this season, and he really took the reins and played well. I'm not sure what the hell I'm really saying here. I'm just kind of winging it. But you know what I mean? He played well. And then Joe Harris. He's another one. Remember, I was like, at the beginning of the year, who the hell is Joe Harris? This guy's useless. He's one of my favorite Nets right now because, even though he was hurt towards the end of the season, when he played, he was a significant player. And I've said this before. He reminds me of J.J. Redick. He's not quite as good as J.J. Redick at this point, but I think that he could be just as good, if not maybe better, because A, he's bigger than J.J. Redick. J.J. Redick's like 6'4", he's 6'6". And B, he's a better slasher than J.J. Redick. J.J. Redick is a pure jump shooter. I think that Joe Harris could really be more of a complete player with his slashing ability as well as his outside shot. So I think he could be just as good as J.J. in a couple years, if not maybe 1 year, 2 years. And then there's players like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who I think he is what he is. They moved him to the power forward spot. His perimeter game is still pretty poor. He's just a really good defender, really athletic. I don't know if he's going to become much more than what we see him as. He's just a really good energy and defensive player and a solid, just a solid player, but nothing super special. But who knows? I was really disappointed a little bit in his growth this season. I kind of thought, being his second season in the league, he was going to grow a little bit more and develop more of his skill set. That doesn't mean he won't, but I just thought I wanted to see a little bit more growth from him. But you look at other players, like I said, Spencer Dinwiddie. I used to say, who the hell is Spencer freaking Dinwiddie? And now I'm like, you know what? I see the pros of Spencer Dinwiddie. He's a very, very solid defensive player. He's long. He's athletic. He's a decent passer. And if his offensive game could get a little bit more consistent, he could be a really, really solid player in this league. To be honest, there was no one I would say was completely useless this year for the Nets, other than players like Anthony Bennett, who got cut. Luis Scola, who I always liked, he was kind of useless. He got cut. Gravis Vasquez became useless. He got cut. I would say Justin Hamilton is probably the only player that I would say this kind of useless. But even that KJ McDaniels guy and Archie Goodwin, when those guys came on 10-day contracts, or KJ McDaniels got traded to the Nets for nothing, literally like nothing. I don't even remember. I think I said he was traded for cap space. He played pretty well, and I see some pros and cons with him, but he was decent. And Archie Goodwin, he was impressive. So even those players came in and played pretty well. And Trevor Booker showed that he's a quality player. And like I said, Quincy Acey played well. I guess maybe Andrew Nicholson is like the only useless player. Because I don't know. He didn't really play too much, but he's pretty useless. But whatever, they had to get rid of Bojan Bogdanovic, which I also loved. So that's another thing I loved about this season. So the truth is, there are a lot of things I liked about this year for the Nets. I know they only won 20 games. I know they ended up with the worst record in the league. I know I expected them to make the playoffs, but they didn't, and Jeremy Lin got hurt, and so on and so forth. But I think that it was a really good season in terms of what the Nets need to do moving forward. You know, the whole point was development, and players developed. Sean Kilpatrick, to me, though, I might say his days might be numbered. The truth is, he's too inconsistent of a player. He's too inconsistent. You know, there's one game he'll score 40, and then the next game he'll score 0. Like, he's kind of a lot like the way Bogdanovich was, and he's just a scorer. So I don't know if I want to say the Nets should get rid of Kilpatrick or they should just not worry about him. But the truth is, I kind of want to see more Karis LeVert next year. And obviously, Randy Foye, I don't think he's going to be on the team. I think he was just a veteran type of player, so on and so forth. But he was also pretty solid, too. He was everything I hoped he would be as a solid veteran player. And then, obviously, Brook Lopez, I couldn't have said anything better other than the fact that the guy still couldn't get any damn rebounds. I mean, other than the rebounding, Brook Lopez was great, you know. So, you know, I'm not sure if I'm missing a player. I think I might be missing somebody. I'm not sure. But the truth is, like I said, other than really Justin Hamilton, everyone else kind of played to solid expectations, in my opinion. And it may not have reflected in the record, but I think the Nets are better off moving forward from this season than they were in the past. I don't know what's going to happen moving forward with the Nets. I really don't, you know. Probably be a couple weeks from now. I'll probably have my next NetsBoy episode be some of the things I want to do, or that I would do if I was Sean Marks. Some of the free agents I would go after, the paid players I would go after in the draft, and so on and so forth. Because remember, the Nets do have 2 draft picks in the first round of this draft. Even though they're in the late round, I think the 22nd and 27th, I think, something like that, 22nd or 28th, around those times, or 24th and 28th, something like that, both in the 20s. But so that's what my next NetsBoy episode would be. It would be more of what I would do moving forward, or what I would like to see the Nets do moving forward over the offseason. But the truth is, there's a lot of question marks still. The Nets definitely look like they have a plan. Sean Marks has a plan. And I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this season. But there's a lot of work to be done. And I'm kind of excited to see what will happen. You know, obviously, a big thing is Brook Lopez. And I don't want him to be traded. But I'm at the point now where, like, I see it happening. I see it right around the corner. But you never know. So keep your eyes open for the next NetsBoy episode. Let me know what you guys think. What were your takeaways from this year? Are you pleased with how the Nets season went, even though they might have only won 20 games? Like I said, I was pretty pleased with it, just in the overall scope of things. So let me know what you guys think. And until the next NetsBoy episode, which will probably come out right around the NBA draft, maybe. So probably will be about a month since you see the next NetsBoy episode. But keep your eyes open. And until then, this is NetsBoy going back to the rest of his life and signing off.